What is up, guys? Team Pilot here, NV Astro, and I'm here today with my boy Sid Hendo. He's pretty much going to be helping us out by asking us questions that a lot of you beginner guys or even experienced guys may have during a PID tuning session. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so before you pretty much begin a tuning session, you kind of want to understand what PIDs and what those variables do. So let's go ahead and start with the P. So the P is pretty much your proportional. So your P is pretty much the most important variable. If you want to tune any of the variables, P is the one you want to tune, because that pretty much dictates how your quad is going to feel, whether it's going to feel sluggish or locked in and snappy. So you definitely want to put your time and effort into tuning P, because believe it or not, your quad could actually fly with 0 out I's and D's. So your integral is pretty much gonna help out with the drifting of the quad. So meaning forward flight, for example, whenever we're flying forward flight, and if you're pressing on the throttle and your quad starts drifting backwards or either sideways during any of those throttle pumps, that's that your I is too low. So that's what I does. It keeps your quad from drifting during flight. Now the D, that's your derivative. That's pretty much like the fine tuning out of your quad, which is gonna help with prop wash. That's one of the main things that it does. During split S's, that slight oscillation you get, or during harsh 180 turns, you get that little bounce back. That's pretty much what D is gonna do. The higher you go, the more is gonna remove those things. But if you go too high, your quad starts feeling a little bit sluggish. So with that, let's go ahead and start tuning and pretty much see what we have to tune. So we are running Betaflight 3.1.7. So let's go ahead and go to the PIDs tab. So this is completely stock PIDs besides the rates. This is my custom rates that I found out to be my favorite for Betaflight. So if you like to copy that down, go ahead. And this is pretty much stock PIDs, so my P's, I, and D's is completely stock. And the first flight is pretty much going to be on stock PIDs. That way I could see what I have to tune and how well it flies. And I'm pretty sure that Betaflight has gotten good enough for stock PIDs to be pretty good.
Do you use your TPA at all?
I do use my TPA sometimes.
Okay. So you're set at what now?
Right now it's stock, completely stock. Okay, everything's completely stock. I'm pretty much just showing you guys what completely stock is, and that way you guys can see. And my filtering is completely stock as well. So with that, let's go ahead and do the first flight and see what we have to tune for the P. This is pretty important because a GoPro adds about 70 to 80 grams extra, which will actually result in having a little bit more P for that extra weight. And whenever you take off that GoPro, you'll start getting oscillations. That's one thing I noticed when you start shaving off weight out of your quad with high kV motors. So you guys out there that are going to be tuning your quad, make sure that you tune without a GoPro, unless you plan to run a GoPro the majority of the time. Yeah. But I definitely recommend you to tune without a GoPro, because when you add that extra weight, it's really going to feel just as fine. It won't have any oscillations versus if you take off weight. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with the first flight.
Recording it?
Yeah. Okay, so right now I'm gonna be doing some little throttle pumps, kind of give you guys the thing for the eye. But right now I'm
basic moves.
Yeah, just basic moves. Split S's help you kind of realize if your P is too high or whether it's too low, or you could raise it. So right now I haven't.
Yeah. What are you noticing?
Right now I'm noticing that, I mean, it's not as locked in as I'd like, so we're definitely gonna
And when you
raise
say
P.
locked in, what do you mean exactly?
Like snappy feeling, see. So I don't know if you guys can see it, but it doesn't really look that too snappy right now.
Okay.
Neither on my roll or pitch.
It's not following your stick very well, is that what you're saying?
Exactly, it's really not following like what I would like it to feel. And right now we're just doing some freestyle moves, but you'll necessarily start feeling it more whenever you have like a track set up.
Do a couple of hard 180s for us, see if there's any oscillation.
Oh, there's definitely right there. And that's one thing, a big thing too, that would help you tuning is listening to your quad. So I don't know if you guys can see that on the GoPro, but there's definitely some oscillation. So we're gonna have to raise D up a little bit. But we're gonna take this one step at a time. So first thing we like doing is tuning the P, and then moving on to I and D. So one thing we're gonna do right here is we're gonna lower down the I and the D values. That way we could get a nice solid P. But overall right now this is flying very, very nice. I'm not having any oscillations right now with stock P. So we're definitely gonna raise up the P. That way we could get more of a locked in responsive feeling of the quad. So with that, let's go ahead and come back down and start tuning.
So in that flight you said it felt a little soft. It wasn't following your stick.
Exactly.
So now we're going to
I usually tend to not even mess with any of the yaw.
Until later, maybe? Or?
Until later. Most of the time, I just tend to keep it stock. So we went ahead and raised the roll and the pitch by 10 each. And the way we'll kind of notice that we kind of hit that sweet spot for the P is whenever we start getting oscillations in on like the split S's or turns, stuff like that. So right now we're gonna we're looking for oscillations. As soon as we hit that point of oscillations is whenever we know we should lower down the P by a few points.
All right.
So let's go ahead and do that. But you always want to kind of. Okay, so
at
right.
This point, yeah.
So right now
Did you push record on your GoPro?
we're pretty much checking for yeah, we're pretty much checking for any oscillations either on split S's, nice turns that you're keeping the throttle on.
All right.
Right now I'm not noticing any. So
How's your voltage?
my voltage is actually, we are at 15 right now.
Okay.
So
That's pretty good.
pretty high because believe it or not, a voltage does affect the PIDs.
Now, are you seeing any oscillations or?
Right now I am not. So it's kind of.
Oh, that's a little weird.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of showing me towards that direction that we could still raise the P up a little bit, but it is fitting a little bit more.
I think I hear just a little bit of oscillation, but you know what?
Okay, let's do a full throttle.
Let's do, yeah, full throttle and turn.
But that's D, remember? So
Yeah, that is
we're with P right now.
Yeah.
Right now I'm not noticing any oscillation. So we're actually going to come back in and raise up the P since it's actually fitting a little bit more locked in. Okay. Even though we just raised it up by 10, so we're gonna go ahead and raise it up by another 10. I think we could still do it another 10. And
you're gonna do both roll and pitch?
Yeah, we're gonna do both roll and pitch, and hopefully that gives us the oscillations we're looking for. But one thing is, don't be afraid to go up, because P, like I said before, is one of your most important values that you can tune. So don't be afraid to go up on the P, because this is kind of based on what you want your quad to feel, whether you want it to feel sluggish, like pretty soft on the sticks, or you want it to feel locked in and responsive, and don't follow your outputs.
Don't get your PIDs confused with your rates.
Exactly.
Because if you want your quad to feel a little softer, you can do that with rate also.
Yeah.
So leave rate where it is. Make sure that your quad is feeling locked in and it flies and follows your sticks well. If you can get it to do that with your P and your I and your D, then you can make the rates make them sharper, or you can make them a little softer, and you can get that feel as far as the middle of the sticks or towards the ends of the sticks, how you want that to feel.
Yeah, exactly.
Because racers are going to actually do those things separate than, say, a freestyler would do. We're going to look for a little bit more sharpness, racers would, and then freestylers are going to have it a little bit softer, probably.
Yeah, and
towards the middle
since
of the
you
stick.
do bring that point up against racers versus freestylers tuning sessions, racers don't really get that 100% tuning thing as long as it feels what they want it to do.
Yes.
Freestylers, on the other hand, they look for that very nice, like every single thing they want it to be pretty perfect, because they want that GoPro footage to look as crisp as possible. So with that, let's go ahead and start raising up the P's.
All right.
So like I mentioned before, we're gonna start raising P. I'm gonna go up 10 more points on both roll and pitch. That thing was already feeling nice and locked in.
Yeah, let's keep going.
But I mean, we're gonna keep going because we want to get the best out of our P, like we said before.
That's right. We want to get the most out of it here. Now, obviously, after you do this, if you take that GoPro off and you feel a little bit of something,
oscillation. Yeah, you know to lower down the P a little bit.
Okay.
But like I told you guys at home, if you guys are gonna be following this video and tuning at the same time, make sure to tune out without a GoPro. It'll be probably the best thing to do, because whenever you add that extra weight, it relaxes the PIDs a little bit, and you really won't even get that oscillation like you would if you tune with weight and then take off the weight. So
well, if you're a freestyler and you're going to fly with a GoPro pretty much 100% of the time,
then tune with the GoPro, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
So right now, like I told you guys before, we went ahead and raised up the roll and the pitch by 10 each.
So now where are you sitting?
So 64. We are sitting at 64 for the roll and pitch for 78. So let's go ahead and try those values and see if we have any oscillations. If we don't, we'll keep raising it up.
Keep it going. All right.
And another thing too is we got a fresh pack on there. That way we have that high voltage going through, because like we said before, sometimes voltage does affect the PID. So fresh pack on there. So let's see if we have any oscillations with the P's and new values that we have. Okay, so we have full voltage battery. Oh, I already started hearing a little bit of oscillations there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can see it on the GoPro, but you see that? You could even hear it.
Yeah.
So at this point, we kind of know that we went a little bit too high on the
P.
On the P. We don't know which axis yet, but the way I usually tell which axis is I do split S's, and around the split S I try to make it nice and tight on and stay on the throttle, so like this. So that may be the P on the roll, since I really didn't get any oscillations.
Yeah.
Oh no, I got them right there. So it's definitely on both axes that we have to lower down the P.
All right.
So we'll go ahead and come back in.
Yeah, let's bring it in quickly.
Quick. And let's lower it down by like about 5 now.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna roll. We're gonna lower it down pitch and roll, or we're just
pitch and roll. We're gonna do pitch and roll.
Okay.
Because we're split S and we're getting that oscillation down at the end.
Okay.
Meaning you have a little bit of that dirty air, but not a lot.
Okay.
But that's definitely the P, because before that we didn't. So since we did go up 10 points, we're gonna go down 5 points and see if we still get that.
What? Okay. Good. All right. Let's do it.
Okay. So like I said before, we're gonna start lowering down the P, since we already did start getting a little bit of oscillation. So let's go ahead and go down by 5 points. So that's gonna go to 5.9. Pitch is going to go to 7.3. And let's go ahead and save that. You have any questions?
Well, yeah, I do. Since D relaxes P just a little bit,
yeah, it does.
Would it have been wise to just bring up the D a little bit, or how do you want to go about doing it? How do you do that?
Yes and no. I mean, since for the purposes of the video, we're gonna go P, I, and D. That way people won't get confused. But for people that kind of already know what to look for in a quad, yes, I would have raised D a little bit or either lowered it down. But since we already lowered it down, we know that we need to raise it up to maybe relax the P. And another thing we brought out in the beginning of the video was TPA. You asked me about it.
Yeah.
So for example, say you did like the feeling of that what that P felt like. You like how it felt nice and locked in, but you were getting that oscillation. That's where TPA kind of starts playing a role.
So explain what TPA is.
So TPA will pretty much relax your PIDs at a certain throttle value, meaning we're getting that oscillation when we're coming out of the split S. So that means we're putting up on the throttle and it's oscillating. So that'll pretty much relax it at a certain throttle value.
Okay,
so right now it's at 0.1.
First number means what?
So right now it's at 0.1. We're not gonna mess with that with TPA unless we have to. If I go down a little bit lower than these values and I'm still getting it, then I'm gonna start messing with the TPA, because I don't want that locked in and responsive field to go away. So with that, let's go ahead and see if we still have those oscillations that we did with the previous values. I don't know if you heard it or not. So since we still have it, let's not go ahead and waste battery. Let's come right in.
Let's not make the motor side either.
Exactly, because that you could possibly burn out a motor if you have too many oscillations. So with that, we went up 10 points before that, then we brought it back down to 5. So we technically went up 5 from the original one. So we're gonna probably come back down. I want to say another 5, because the tune before that was pretty good. But
how about not 3?
Let's do 3. That's exactly what I was thinking, because I don't want to sacrifice the feel too much. But like I said before, if I do like how it's feeling right now, but I just don't like that it's oscillating whenever I pull throttle. So TPA may help there. We may want to see that.
We want to do it before TPA.
But exactly, we need to do it before TPA. TPA, you want to not use it right away, but you want to use it whenever you like that real feeling, but you cannot find that sweet spot of the feel and the P value. That's whenever you want to start incorporating TPA. But I think we can still get the P to feel the same and by lowering down the value anyway. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so right here we are looking at the P's. We need to bring it down by 3. And see, if we bring it down by 3 right now, if we do have any issues with those P's, like I'm getting oscillations, that's when we start messing with TPA. So or D. But right now we're gonna go on TPA. That way we go from P, I, and D. And let's go ahead and try these. And if we are getting a little bit of oscillation, I'm gonna start adding a little bit of T. It went away.
Not bad.
And we're getting it just a little bit. So TPA would actually serve this pretty well.
Let's bring up the D a little bit and see what happens.
Well, I don't want to mess with the D yet, because I do want to go like P, I, and D. For people at home, it'll make it easier for them. That way they won't get confused. But I think TPA would actually fix this slight oscillation. So let's go ahead and bring it back down. And maybe go up by like 0.1 up on the D. I mean on the TPA.
All right, nice. Let's check it out.
So let's go ahead and go up on the TPA now. I think P is pretty good right there where it's at.
Okay.
So
so with the TPA, right now you have it
at 0.1.
Halfway on
I'm
your
actually go 0.25.
Okay.
I think 0.25 should be enough.
Okay.
And if we don't get any more oscillations, we'll move on to the I, because we want that thing to keep that angle during forward flight. I haven't really paid attention to it, whether it's keeping it or not, but I will this next time up, since we're pretty much close to the P. So we're gonna go ahead and give that a try. And since this is kind of like that final thing for P, I'm gonna start looking for I, whether it's drifting or not.
Okay.
And if I'll see which axis is drifting, and if I see that it's drifting over to the left or the right, that means it's your roll. If it's pushing forward or back, that means of course is your your pitch.
Cool. Let's take off. All right.
Okay, so right here we're gonna go ahead and do that punch out.
Yeah.
See if we got rid of those slight oscillations.
Wow. Wow.
That sounds
Sounds
good
really
right
good.
there.
Yeah.
I don't know, and it still has that nice little snappy. Let's check on a perfect zero oscillation there.
Nice.
Look at
So
that.
the TPA actually took that away.
Oh yeah, it really did.
That's
And it didn't affect the way my quad actually felt, whether it felt sluggish or not. It kept that same nice snappy feeling that I have, and I wanted to. So you saw how we had that slight oscillation, that punch out,
Yes.
before the TPA, and then TPA just pretty much fixed that.
And you brought up TPA from 0.10
0.1
to
to
0.25.
0.25.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay. Still
maybe,
kept it at 1650.
yeah, and I'm gonna keep it at 0.25 because it felt great. The punch out
Okay.
was great,
Okay.
and my what do you want to call
Descent.
it? Exactly, my descent from the split S just felt fine without zero oscillations. Now we're gonna move on to the I. So let's do that.
Let's get the, we're moving on from P and we're going to I now.
Yeah.
I is integral, and I is going to maintain the attitude of the quad. So if you go right, instead of
stick
keep
that
rolling
nice
right,
angle.
it'll just stay where you put it.
You will lose altitude, so don't get it confused with losing altitude is like losing that angle. So don't get that confused.
That is true.
But we are below 10 of what the stock is, so let's actually go to stock and see how that feels.
So stock was what?
40, so we went down
At
10.
40 on pitch? Or
Yeah,
what?
and 50 we went up on the pitch.
Okay.
Is stock for I. So
Okay.
we'll go back to stock, and I think stock may be fine. The way I'm gonna do this is I'm just gonna bank over and stay on the throttle a little bit, let go of my right stick, and if it keeps that angle going, that means my eye is pretty good.
Okay.
And it's pretty much tuned. And I think Betaflight stock eye should be fine.
Okay.
We do have a fresh battery, so we might even start getting some oscillations like we did before,
Yeah, maybe.
that we didn't see before.
Let's see, punch out.
Nope.
Nope.
Feels great.
All right.
Okay,
So
so
is
now
it
let's
feeling
go over
good?
here to the open side,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna bank over to the right. So we're gonna bank over and see if it keeps that angle.
All right.
So see, don't get confused with it losing altitude like it was right there. But so far it looks good, man. Look at that. That angle stays on there.
What about your pitch?
So roll looks fine. We could probably go up like
Pitch it.
5 more.
Yeah, pitch it hard and see if it's.
Perfectly,
That is
yeah.
awesome.
That is
Awesome.
locked in there. And to just kind of make it a like for sure thing, let's go up 5 points, and that really shouldn't affect anything.
Okay. Great.
So yeah, we'll go 5 points on the I, and then from there I think we're done with I, because
Okay.
stock actually felt pretty nice, and we'll start tuning D.
All right.
So we are about to raise up I for
5 more points.
5 more
maybe?
points, yeah. And I think those numbers are good, so let's go ahead and move on for the D. So for the D, what do you think you're looking for?
Why would we want to mess with D at this point?
Well, because
it's looking good.
it's looking good, but I don't know if you heard it or noticed. You probably heard it, but whenever we're doing harsh 180s,
Yeah.
we have that little bounce back and kind of prop wash. That's
Okay.
what we call it.
Okay.
We want to get rid of it as much as possible. And let me go ahead and look at the values for stock D. The values for stock D is 30 and 35.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and go up to that.
All right.
And
Because we did lower it down initially
yeah,
when we were tuning
and
P.
keep in mind, D will affect the way P was initially. If your quad did feel responsive and nice and snappy, D has a D has an effect on P. If you raise it up too high, it'll start feeling a little bit sluggish. So stock may make it feel a little bit sluggish. Like it may get rid of those that prop wash, but it won't have the same feel like you initially wanted it to. So let's go ahead and try the stock Ds and see how well those feel.
All right. Next flight. Raise D up to stock.
All right. So right here, I'm gonna be doing like 180-degree turns. So we're getting a little bit of prop wash.
Yeah. A little bit.
So right here, you really want to
really hard throttle too.
But what you want to do right here is just kind of start doing like real. Look that. My responsive and snappy feeling hasn't really sacrificed.
How's your angle holding?
My angle is perfectly fine. Look at that. Oh, perfectly.
That little bit of prop wash, wouldn't we?
A razor?
A racer. Like
a racer, yes.
Yeah.
Me personally, this probably feels like about 90 to 95% tuned.
Okay.
Just that slight prop wash that we're getting, but it's not even that bad. So I mean, if you really wanted to, we could go up. We could actually go like 2 or 3 points up on the roll only. That way we could still have that nice pitch, snappy feeling. That way we won't go up because pitch feels absolutely fine.
Okay.
In my
so you would go up a few percentages on the D.
On the D
pitch,
for the roll. For the roll, yes.
Okay.
Because roll, we tend to use it a lot more.
Yes.
Because we're like at 45 degrees.
Yes.
We're right here whenever we're flying. So technically your roll becomes your turns.
Yes.
So that's pretty much what we want to tune out. We don't really use pitch too much. So we could actually go back down on the P.
Okay.
If we really wanted to.
Okay.
And get a little bit more of that snappy feeling. But I mean, I think the P, no, I'm sorry, the D for the pitch is fine.
Okay.
We should leave it at, I think it was at 35. But for the roll, as currently at 30, I think we should go up to 33 and we should be fine with that and see if,
let's see if
we still get any oscillations.
Awesome. Okay. So you said on roll, we're going to bring the D up a little bit to handle just that extra little bit of oscillation. We're going to go 3 points?
Okay. We're going to do 3 points.
All right.
And remember, this is with the GoPro, so you might have to lower down your P once you take off the GoPro. Okay. Yes, we will probably have to lower down that P, maybe by about 10 to 5 points, if anything, both for the roll and pitch. Okay. If you're getting oscillations, I'm gonna test that out myself. After this, I'm gonna fly it without a GoPro and see if we don't or not. Okay. But the I and D, you can leave it the same.
Okay, so let's talk about rates a little bit. So if a newbie is going to set up his quad, what should he try to do with his rates to give him the best result while he's trying to learn to fly? Because most newbies don't really know how to fly.
I personally came from pretty stiff sticks that I had to slam all the way for my quad to respond. But that's whenever I was a freestyler and I was barely getting into racing. So I wouldn't recommend that. Because one thing I did notice that when I used to fly that way and I used to race, I used to slam my sticks so much and my quad, it felt sluggish, you know, with such a high expo and not that much rate, your quad starts feeling really stiff and you have to slam the sticks and then that causes it to feel like delayed or something, you know. And I didn't realize until I went from stiff rates to like pretty sensitive rates, and I noticed that with sensitive rates it felt a lot more responsive. So for the beginner guy, I'd recommend the stiffness that way because they're going to be shaky on the sticks. You don't want that to kind of display on your flying for it to be shaky. So for like a beginner about to barely just fly, I more sensitive rates. So like on the screen, this graph, a lot of people don't really understand it, but take a look at this. These are my custom rates that I kind of accustomed to. So my I do 500 degrees per second on roll and pitch, and y'all notice that it's 455. It's a little bit less, and that's because I do more of a yanking bank. And you said it earlier too. You said that I'm barely putting a little bit of the yaw.
Yeah.
And that's because whenever I'm turning, my quad isn't turning this way around a turn. It's doing more of a roll. Like we said before, I do more of a roll, or I'm doing more of a roll and then I'm yanking through the turn. That way I can keep my speed. But notice as I go up on the super rate, you see the red line, it goes more up.
Yes.
It gets more exponential.
So that's at the end of your stick.
Yes,
right?
this is at the end of the stick. So,
Okay.
meaning,
If you
imagine
move
this is the middle.
stick,
This
yeah.
is the middle, right?
Okay.
And the red, as you start going up, you start getting more of that sensitive rate, you know?
Yes.
Around the middle, you'll be pretty stiff, you know? But as soon as you start slamming that stick to the outer edges, you will start spinning pretty quick.
Yeah.
And that's what freestylers really like, because they
Yes.
like that Johnny FPV type of little snap feel,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And stuff like that. That's what a freestyler would like. And this brings me to another good point. A lot of people get confused with because they learn how to fly and they have such high rates.
Yes.
Like I know one of our friends had real high rates where he would race and he would try to turn and he would turn too much.
Yeah.
And it'll mess up his line.
Overturn, yeah.
And that's what a lot of people mistake. They have real high rates where it messes up their lines and it doesn't make them as good as they would like to, and the quad doesn't do what they want it to do because they're high rates.
So basically, when you're up in a higher speed, if you have higher rates,
It'll mess
then
you up.
it'll mess you up.
Yeah, it'll
So
completely
it
mess you
won't
up.
allow you to make a smooth turn. You'll
Exactly.
over-rotate.
Or you'll overrate.
or
So
do
instead
something
of
like
actually going up to say around a flag, you're
Yes.
here, you're going around a flag. Instead of going nice and smooth, you'll and then
Yes.
over
Overshoot it,
roll.
and then have
Exactly.
to overcorrect the opposite
Exactly.
direction.
And notice that these lines are almost a straight line.
Yes.
They're almost linear,
Yeah.
meaning it's pretty sensitive. If I had, for example, watch, I'll add a little bit of expo on the roll, and look what it does to my graph. You see that?
It shoots it up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty much, it'll be pretty stiff around the center, but as we start going out, I'll start getting more of that faster rate.
Yeah.
But I personally fly with 0 expo. That way you won't be too sensitive on the sticks, and that way it won't kind of get all the stick movements that you would if you were just to have a pretty sensitive thing. It'll kind of help you out if you're barely beginning to learn how to fly. So I told him, hey, why don't you try my rates? And that actually has made them
a huge difference.
a huge difference. Yes,
The thing
your
was
lines
is
are a lot
that
more smoother and
The
everything.
faster I learned to fly, the less rate I needed towards the middle of the stick.
Yeah.
It allowed me just to flow into turns and not have too much
Exactly.
agitation or too much aggressiveness in those turns.